Welcome everybody to another episode of the Future of Work webinar. Today, I want to talk about top strategies for driving diversity, equity, and inclusion in the hybrid workplace. So we have prepared a brief but hopefully meaningful presentation for everybody. And our agenda for today is going to cover this presentation in 3 points or 3 different sections. DEI initiatives and what they are and why they matter for your company, for your team. DEI challenges with remote or hybrid workforces, and the use of technology to reinforce your DEI strategy. So Sam and I will walk you through some really good insights that we have carefully taken or research, and then also walk you through some examples that we also research and we also practice here at Service Rocket that we hope are valuable and helpful for you and your company. So, okay, before we dive into the meat of the presentation, a little bit about Service Rocket. We're a leading tech-enabled services company that accelerates the growth of software companies and their customers. And we do this by maximizing the software adoption and the return of the investment. We provide an ecosystem of capabilities that span software implementations, adoptions, retention, and expansion. And next slide, please, Sam. Oh, Sam's controlling the slide today.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Well, so Luna is the head of culture and experience at Service Rocket, on top of many other positions. He built the Service Rocket operations and culture for Service Rocket in Latin America, specifically the Chile office, before moving to London, where he currently resides. He's designed the actual candidate experience and employee branding to highlight the culture and values of what it actually means to be a Service Rocket Rocketeer, to make sure it's consistent across all of our global offices. So one time for everybody, let's get a quick clap for Luna. Hey.
Thank you. Yeah, for those in the audience, they call me Luna because we have like 4 different Rodrigos in the company. So it's really complicated to identify which Rodrigo are we talking about. But in regards to my co-host today, Sam Miller, he is based in Boston. He is our product marketing manager. He's part of the PMM team here at Service Rocket. His passions are all about basketball. He's a big Celtics fan, even though secretly loves the Lakers. He's that doesn't match, right? No. I'm clearly not a basketball follower. No. Collaboration, communication, customer value realization, and he's also an MBA in marketing strategies, and he's been a Rocketeer for the last almost 3 years, almost 2 years, 2 years. Okay.
Yeah, August. Right?
So thanks for hosting this with me, man. Good to have you again.
Amen. If you actually do want to connect with us, you can scan the QR code for our LinkedIn pages so you can continue this conversation after the webinar ends. But without further ado, what is diversity, equity, and inclusion? Diversity, equity, and inclusion has been a hot topic in the US for decades, dating back to civil rights and women's rights movements in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But since then, the topic of DEI has remained prevalent and discussed, but not to the same degree as it was in the 60s and 70s. During the 2020 pandemic lockdown, however, due to a lot of blatant acts of racism and brutality against minorities, the topic's prevalence has risen again, with many companies and organizations having taken stances against the intolerable treatment of people of color. Companies like General Motors and Salesforce, amongst a myriad of others, have made promises to foster a diverse and inclusive company culture, as well as making donations to nonprofit organizations whose mandates are centered around supporting and promoting diversity and inclusion. All of which is fantastic, and it should be celebrated as a way, as they are helping moving our culture as a nation in the right direction. But to start this conversation, we want to level set at the playing field for everyone by providing a definition of what diversity, equity, and inclusion actually means. So diversity is a variety of experiences, cultures, views that arise from differences in different circumstances that can be their age, race, gender, sexuality, geopolitical location. Equity is the fair treatment, access, opportunity, advancement for all staff. It requires eliminating barriers to full participation of marginalized groups and as well as providing access and ways for people to move up inside the company and to drive promotion, especially for people of color. Now, inclusion is creating an environment in which any individual feels welcome, respected, and valued. Luna, do you think those are do you agree with those? How do you feel about those definitions? Also, the audience, if you want to chime in, please feel free.
Yeah, I would be curious to see what our audience understand about these three concepts first, but also there's so many definitions for each of. Like, I'm pretty sure if we Google what's the definition for each of these concepts are, like, we're going to have a very, very big bucket of definitions from different sources. But I think you covered the three of them back up a pretty narrow definition. So it's not that I agree totally with them. It's just like I feel like so many information or so many ways to describe it, depending of the source. Sorry, we try to you try to narrow it down pretty well. So,
well, why does actually DE and I matter? Workplace diversity, inclusion, and equity has become a priority and a path forward for most businesses, big and small, who really want to cultivate a more positive culture and provide fair and sustainable opportunities for everyone to succeed and grow. According to Linemate Institute, 67% of job seekers consider workplace diversity an important factor when considering employment opportunities. People who feel included are 28% more engaged, they're 43% more committed to their company, and are 51% more likely to recommend a company as a great place for work. That put together, really, companies spend a lot of time and money recruiting talent, but it's much cheaper to retain talent than it is to actually find it. By focusing on DE&I initiatives, companies are enabling and retaining their talent. When companies focus on retaining talent, people feel included and are 42% less likely to leave and intend to stay at the company 3 times as long. And I definitely feel this way about Service Rocket, and it makes perfect sense because I don't feel like I'm going to leave anytime soon. A lot of Service Rocket employees, we get 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. I think we saw 14 years. The company's only been around for 20 years. The annual anniversary is coming up a lot. What about you, Luna?
Well, I do agree with the retention and the way that this can be used as a tool. I think diverse workspace, and I've seen it too, like in my experience, just not as part of Service Rocket, but in all the teams before. I guess there's so much value in the way that diverse teams operate that also keep people more engaged and motivated to stay. Like, obviously there's all the reasons, and most recently all these trend of people changing jobs that happened in between in the last couple of years for the reasons that came with COVID and all that situation, the remote work, and probably what I associate with that is also people wanted to try something else and just disconnect from or having the opportunity to change their environment to improve their work-life balance. I think, as you mentioned, it's much more expensive to hire somebody to retain somebody, and initiatives like this one will add a little bit to that. I'm not saying this is going to be the only reason why people will stay in the company, but definitely will be something that will value having a diverse team and the impact that will have in not only the professional performance, and in the personal growth, and in the way that opens up your mind to all the cultures, all the behaviors, all the traditions, all the ways to work as well.
Stop giving away what's coming later. Slow it down.
Sorry.
So to further along why it actually matters, why you should focus on DEI, effective DE&I practices start at the top with leaders looking within themselves, as well as the organizational structure, to identify biases, reshape policies, and implement meaningful practices. When it comes to companies with diverse management teams, they are 21% more likely to be profitable. They're 27% better at creating value, and they earn 38% more revenue. That's more than a third. That's actually a lot of money. And they're 158% more likely to understand their customers when they have at least one member who represents their target's gender, race, age, sexual orientation, or culture. The most impactful statistic we found, though, really centers around innovation. Companies that are with a diverse management team are 6 times more innovative. Focusing on DEI innovation initiatives can really pay off if done correctly and intentionally over time. So moving on. When we talk about DE&I, everyone thinks when you're starting off, it's really focused on they're focused on keeping employees or hiring, getting them started off the right foot. And hiring is honestly, it's really just the beginning, because hiring a diverse workforce is really one of the bedrocks of having a successful D&I initiatives. But in today's great resignation and attrition, it's hard to attract the talent your company needs to compete. But retaining the talent is even harder. So how do successful companies do it? They do it by creating an equitable and inclusive workplace. That means making sure each employee feels included. And typically, this is where a lot of companies lose momentum over time, because they really just focus on specific points, not ongoing engagement, ongoing inclusiveness. When a company workplace is inclusive, employees feel that they are authentically valued for their skills, their ideas, the experiences they bring with them, and they feel valued as a whole person, their whole self, bringing their whole self to work. When employees feel a stronger sense of connection between each other, they're able to utilize the strengths and skills of every individual. Collaboration is key to the success of your business and a huge piece of inclusion in the workplace. Within that collaborative environment we just spoke about, having a voice is paramount. Employees need to feel that they have a say in decisions that impact their work. Leaders and managers should proactively find ways to enable employees to use their voice. Giving employees the resources necessary to be inclusive and successful. Give employees the resources necessary to be inclusive and successful, whether it's employee resource groups or technology. Natural and valuable solutions are easy starting points to influence individual behaviors. In global dispersed workforces, access to the right technology is really essential. Employees must feel they have the opportunity to develop and advance their career at their organization. Without learning and development as a key component of inclusion and broader company values, you will stunt employee growth and limit innovation. When companies explain why an inclusive workplace is important, then leaders, managers, employees can put the strategy into action. This is important because inclusion happens on a daily basis, from onboarding to an employee's last day of the job. You really need to make sure that the thousands of interactions that make up an employee's experience are inclusive. Individuals need to feel connected to a common cause, something bigger than themselves, but also they need to be recognized for their uniqueness. It's crucial that employees feel the organization values their unique perspective and the skills they bring to work. Acknowledging employee achievement, small wins, is really just the first step. Ultimately, inclusion is just measured by a sense of belonging. When employees feel they really fit in a company, that's when you get the best engagement and the best results. Luna?
Okay.
Let's talk about a little bit about the challenges with the hybrid workforce.
Yeah, definitely. Before we jump into some examples or some specific challenges that we have identified, not only as part of Service Order, but for other companies, I like to make these things dynamic. So I'll reach out again to people there on the outside of the screen. Like, do you know that first? Like, what do you think are the challenges that your company right now, independently of the type of company that you work on or that you work in? What are the challenges that you think your company is facing or your team is facing in regards to DEI? Like, just you can say that one word or two, or you can expand as many as you want. I'll give 30 seconds of that because that people wants to jump in. And in the meantime, can you just, well, we have one from Trudy. Thanks, Trudy, finding people in our community who have the qualifications that we need. Okay, that's a very good one. We have something similar, and now I'll share a little bit about it after the challenges, because it's kind of aligned when we started putting our team together in Latin America the first time. So I'll start with these three: lack of in-person interactions, geographical silo, difficulty collaboration, sharing knowledge, productivity in different time zones, and feature company culture, different cultures and languages. And I like that what Trudy shared, like finding people in our community. one of the things that we challenged when we were opening our first operations in Latin America, Service Rocket, is we faced that kind of situation where we were trying to put together a really strong or world-class support team in Santiago, in Chile. But when we got there, we realized that there was a lot of challenges, not specifically in soft skills, but there was a language barrier that we didn't anticipate. So we needed to give or to help grow those skills into people. So we had to kind of reinvent the strategy that we had for our very first team there. And in the long run, we ended up building one of the strongest teams there, luckily. But in the beginning, we thought we just assumed that we're going to have those skills there. And I totally relate to what Trudy said. We have also another example from Gretchen here. Lots of cultures across different time zones. That's another one. Featured company culture as well. Like it's related to point number 4 in this slide. When in our case, we're a global company, and even though the diversity enriches the operations, sometimes it takes a little while for everybody to realize that the behaviors or the traditions or some of the, I would say, even values that we have in some parts of the world are not the ones that are not the same or are not shared for other ones, and that's where we need to build that. I would say that we need to face that challenge to actually find a way to make it work smooth for everybody.
A great way to do that actually is create a video first culture for employees, especially for the hybrid or remote employees that they don't necessarily get a lot of chance face to face with messages from leaders or teammates firsthand. Because a lot of times when things get passed through translation through other people, you might lose some things, or it doesn't come across the way the message was originally intended. So using video first tools like Workplace or even using WhatsApp, other tools, you can send that message directly to the person it was intended to, and make sure that the message is clear and concise, and that nothing's being lost.
Yep. And for geographical silo difficulties, we also, like one suggestion will be just to encourage cross-team collaboration as well. Like if you have any tools that will support that, or any systems that will help your team or your company to break that challenge, that will be a great way to start as well. Also, for the time zone part, this is enable asynchronous work so that all employees can have the opportunity to contribute when their schedule permits, to compare to some employees. Like probably another example between Samuel and myself, we are like six hours away now. Yeah. So every time when I wake up in the morning, I try to get advanced as much as I can in the tasks that we have together. So by the time he's online, we can continue to work and moving forward. And that's one good topic as well. So if you have any kind of process on top of that, or you haven't created a process to do that, or you haven't think about it, that would be a good way to approach it as well. And can you move to the next slide, please, Sam?
Yeah. So how do you actually use technology? To reiterate what we were just talking about in the last slide, all these challenges are challenges that are common, but they're actually able to be overcome using technology. And we have a few different examples to be able to help you out with that. So specifically, this one is empowering voices. This one, Luna, I'll let you take, because I know this one's really centered around the cultural heritage group, and that was one of your babies. So please take it away.
I'll actually pass those credits to our team there in Service Rocket. But basically, what it is, part of we really empowered, or really are proud to be a very diverse company, even though we're not like very big. We're about 300 employees, but we wanted to share that diversity. We wanted to make everybody aware of how cool it is to have all this diversity inside of such a small community. So we enabled these, or we implemented this new benefit in the company. It's called Cultural Heritage Day, where people can take a day off so they can celebrate something. They can celebrate their heritage, or they can just make an impact as part of a community of their choice. So a lot of people are now taking that day to celebrate something that is unique to their heritage or to their background. Even and a lot of people, as myself, we're not even in the country where we were born, but we want to keep that that root or those traditions alive. So people are now doing this. And the way for us to communicate or to share this with everybody at Cerberus Rocket, with the Rocketeer community, we enable a workplace group where they post about what's the meaning of the day that they choose to take to celebrate that diversity. And then we have people sharing about the religion, people sharing about the charity work that they're doing, or charity cause that they're supporting, or just something meaningful that goes back to their family roots, to celebrate some a loved one anniversary, a loved one birthday or something, or sons, daughters, siblings, and I think it has been such an impact that more people, we see more posts coming in, like in a monthly basis, in the weekly basis as well, and just it started like a movement now where people are less shy to share about it, and is actually contributing to the richness of the diversity that we have as a company.
Just for context, Cerberus Rocket has 8 offices, global offices. We have offices in California, Chile, Kuala Lumpur, Australia, Sydney, not Sydney, that's
yeah, Sydney, yeah.
The other ones.
All right, Sydney, Palo Alto, Santiago, Chile, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Singapore, London, Toronto, Bangalore, the Philippines, and we just recently hired our first El Salvador employee.
Hey.
So we're expanding. Yeah.
Boston office. But this is an example of one of our coworkers, Ahmed. He's a Muslim gentleman that lives in Kuala Lumpur, and he was talking about the Eid celebrations they have at the end of Ramadan. This is something that I knew absolutely nothing about, but after reading why it's important to him, how his story in relation to the holiday, it really helped me feel closer to him, even though I've never actually met him or talked to him. I learned so much more about him than I probably would have if I actually met him in person on a short basis. But and if you want to find out more about the tools that can help with driving like diversity and cultural heritage and making more of a collaboration and communication between a dispersed team, you can scan the QR code on the bottom left, and that will take you to our webpage. It talks about how you can actually use Workplace as to drive more inclusion and to drive more collaboration with your team. The next one is an example of Gretchen Pulowski. She's the director of product marketing. It's my boss, and Luna's boss too, actually. She has a child who's on the spectrum, and every year she donates some of her time to Best Buddies Friendship Walk, where her family, you can see on the bottom left, her daughter and her daughter's service dog can be surrounded by people that are in the same situation as them. Her daughter doesn't necessarily have to feel like she's alone. And it's a great way for everyone to celebrate what's important to her. And you can see on the right, it started a conversation. There's 9 comments that you can't see, and then there's 2 that you actually can see. And it's comments from, Betty, for instance, she was unaware of what Best Buddies was and that it even existed. So she's learned something new just from having that one post, which brings people together. And Peter, he's the Chief Customer Officer. He appreciated that she was able to share this with us, because it's a reminder that we can each make a difference in someone else's life, and without having to spend a lot of money or a lot of time. And by volunteering, it'd be beneficial for you and for everyone. These are 2 definitely great examples of how we were able to share culture here at Cerberus Rocket using the tool technology Workplace. Next slide. So Luna, how would you use technology to enable access to resources?
Oh, sorry. I have lag.
Hey,
okay. No, sorry. I have it's raining bad here. Uh, can you repeat the question? Sorry.
So how would you use technology to enable access to resources? Like this is an example of the Welcome New Hire group.
Oh, okay. So, well, first thing is to make it inclusive so everybody. It's just like we want to make sure that people feel like they're part of something, even though they're not part of a group, even though they're just working from home, right, or working from wherever they are. And one of the examples that we added here is when we onboard Sam. Sam was one of our, I would say, one of our very first full remote employees, and it was a new challenge for us back then. We were not in this hybrid environment, so how do we replicate as much as we can that dynamic to have Sam feeling that he was part of a group that was virtually there, right? He was not somebody that he didn't have somebody that he can reach out next to him in his workstation. So we use we have dedicated a group of onboarding for new employees where we actually share all the information that he needs to know when they join the company needs to know about the company when they join, where they can request help, where they can find information about setting up their systems, where they can reach out for help when something is not properly working or where they get stuck in something, how to enable specific features of the systems that they're using, or how to request, I don't know, credentials, or where they can find the credentials to activate all the systems. A little bit of history about the company, about the office where he will be interacting the most, or the team that he will be interacting the most, and all the information that will make him feel, or will give him the insight, or give them the insight that will make them feel part of the company, of the team that they were hired for. That's one of the examples.
I loved it because it seemed so organized compared to other companies that I started with. There was a video on what it's like to be a Rocketeer, a PDF booklet on explaining the benefits, instructions on how to set up my workplace profile. And then also, this is something I took in grad school, but every single employee at work at Service Rocket, they actually have to take a DISC assessment, just common for all of our employees. And it was nice and interesting for me because it gave me some more. I already taken the assessment, but it's good to retake it. It gave me see if there's any changes between when I took it in 2017 to now in 2020, to see if what my strengths. If I'm a high I, I'm an influencer, but to see if that changed, it was very beneficial for me. It actually didn't, but it also helped my teammates get a better understanding of where my strengths are and how they can work with me better. And honestly, really helped me to hit the ground running. And again, just on the left, you can see a QR code where you can scan some more information to find out more about Workplace.
But these also help, like we talked about some of the challenges before of how to break the time zone challenge as well. Do you remember, like a few slides before? And actually having something like this, it actually gives you a more like a self-paced kind of interaction as well. But we know we on the back end, we create the experience, so make sure that you get all the information that you need, even though probably it's like I'll be 6 hours ahead of you, or probably for some other people the challenge is that sometimes their team or the direct manager are like 12 hours away, which is not the unusual practice. But when you have a space like this or a platform like this, like you can go into your own pace, and by the time your manager, part of your team also are on operation or working hours, you already have done some progress there. So that's another challenge that we can cover with this.
So up next is using technology to create a collaborative environment. Really, this one, it really centers around a tool that we have, partners that we have. One partner we have is Miro, and the integration with Zoom. So this topic isn't a specific example about specifically around DEI, but the concepts that we're leveraging for diversity and fostering inclusion are very prevalent, which you can use through technology to give everyone a voice and a say in a conversation. So in this example, Luna, our content manager, Nell, and I, all dispersed team members from different offices, time zones, countries. Nell's in Toronto, I'm in Boston, Luna's in London/Austria as of today. We actually held a brainstorm workshop to think about what we want to have for our upcoming webinars. What you're seeing on the screen is a screenshot of two of the panels from the workshop we held in Miro. Miro, just for context, is an online collaborative whiteboard platform that enables distributed teams to work effectively together, from brainstorming to digital sticky notes to planning and managing agile workflows. With this example, everyone who participates is made to feel a part of the team because they have the opportunity to voice their ideas. All of us feel heard because our ideas are given the same level of respect and opportunity as everyone else's, which honestly, to me, is really the epitome of diversity and inclusion coming together. This was made possible through technology that is very easy to use and readily available for everyone to use. Again, you can scan the QR code on the bottom left to find out more about Miro. What's great about this workshop and using Miro is the workshop could have been done synchronously or asynchronously. Synchronously is in everyone comes together on a specific time. We work through the workshop together, or we can do it in our own time, similar to what Luna was talking about a little bit earlier. By doing it asynchronously, we'd actually be able to help minimize the feeling of being excluded by any team member, or members that are not in the same time zone, or ones that you might work the night shift instead of the day shift. Now, after putting our ideas down on paper, we voted to pick our favorite topics, which you can see over here. These are the ones that we actually voted on, and we grouped them, which you can see in the black squares. Now, this can be very easily accomplished using Zoom and Miro. Pause for me for just a second while I set this up. You can actually use Miro at the same time as when you're using Workplace. Excuse me, when you're using Zoom. There's an integration between Miro and Zoom where you actually be able to pull up the board actually in Zoom and be able to edit it like you would any other given time. But since we're on a webinar, it's not necessarily working. So I'll just show you how to actually use it in Miro. So this is we can jump right back into Miro. I forgot I'm not sharing my screen. So this is the board the workshop we put together for the topics that we were going to talk about for going forward in our webinar. So I started off with setting up what the goals are, which are to decide on what 10 topics we want to use to cover in our blogs and webinars. Set up a little agenda for the webinar. You have warm-ups, time to brainstorm, we're grouping and voting. We put together what a recap is. As a fun little starter, a little warm-up, everyone got to create their own little person. So you grab a body, move it over here, grab a head, move it over here, little face, put it on face. And it's just a great way to get started on working together and brainstorming and having fun before you actually get into the actual brainstorm. From here, you can see these are the screenshots that you saw. These were all of our ideas put together. We all separated them out by our different colors, in which we voted on them by moving them up. And then this is the specific grouping and the voting that we've decided on. And then on the right, what you'll see is the final selections. We took all these final selections and made them cards, so that anyone comes into this Miro board, whether it be my boss, the director, or the executive director, they can come in and get an understanding of what we were doing, how it's worked, what we're working towards, and then provide feedback with comments. Now, if we go back to the webinar. Next tool we actually use that we have that we're partners with is a way for you to promote learning and development is Oracle by NetSuite. Oracle by NetSuite is Oracle by NetSuite. It helps companies manage core business processes with a single, fully integrated system covering ERP financials, CRM, e-commerce, inventory, and more. So recently at Service Rocket, we launched a tool inside of NetSuite called Career Pathways. It's an ingenious way for companies to foster equity in their organization for multiple reasons. For instance, this shows that the leaders, by you setting this tool up, it shows that the leadership team has put thought into the past for each employee to take and progress in their career. If you can see right here, this is the product marketing job function. And as you move to the right, these are how people can actually move up. This is the career path and what the next roles are going to be for each individual, whether it be an individual contributor or a manager. Part of being a company that focuses on equitability is giving all team members the opportunity for internal promotion, and by having clearly defined skills that they can learn so they can move vertically or laterally inside the company. Now in NetSuite, you're enabled to be transparent about what role you have, which is right here. This is actually my my NetSuite account. And you can see I'm the product marketing manager. It's a little bit fuzzy, apologize, but this is the role that I selected as I self-identified that I'm in. Now, this is the senior manager product marketing position. This is something that I'm actually working towards. And if you actually click, this isn't interactive, but if we click on the job description or the title up here, it pulls up the actual job description of what the role, what's required of somebody who's a senior manager in product marketing. By using this in NetSuite, you're enabled to be transparent about, like I said, what your job you're working towards, and it helps the person who's working towards the next role so they can be aware of what their responsibilities are for that role, what qualifications need to have to be successful in that role, to be considered for the role, and then the skills that you need to actually be successful for your role. And by making this transparent with your manager or your leader of what you're trying to work towards, they can spend time with you to figure out what are the tactics, what are some of the things you can do to work on those skills to help you be successful to get to that next role. Does that make sense, Luna?
Sorry. It does. It does. It does.
Right.
Sorry, I was muted.
Just to recap, so diversity is a variety of personal experiences, values, and views that arise from differences in culture and circumstances. Equity is the fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancements for all staff. It actually requires eliminating barriers for full participation of marginalized groups. Inclusion is creating an environment in which any individual or group can feel welcome, respected, supported, and valued. Why does DEI matter? Because it's a large driver of making sure the company is profitable, actually 21% more profitable if you focus on DEI. It also fosters engagement in hybrid and remote team members, which keep them motivated and make them 43% less likely to leave and want to stay 3 times as long. Your team will be 158% more likely to understand their customers and 6 times more innovative, which you will need to continuously evolve and become better at servicing your customers. Some of the challenges with DEI is helping to reduce the lack of in-person interactions. It drives productivity, especially for employees in different time zones. It also, the solutions to these challenges also help to prevent a fractured company culture, and also helps to embrace individuals' different cultures and languages. Now, you'd use technology to reinforce your DEI strategy to empower voices with communication tools like Workplace to hear from individuals about their culture and what makes them unique. Also, the technology help you enable access to resources by sharing vital information that employees need to be successful in their role, like with Workplace and the new hire group that we showed you, and create a collaborative environment by using tools that enable everyone to participate in a decision-making process with tools like Morel, the collaboration tool I showed you. And then promote learning and development by laying out paths for individuals to move vertically or laterally in the company, as well as the skills necessary to be successful in the long run. A great example of this would be the career pathways in NetSuite by Oracle. In conclusion, we honestly, genuinely thank you everyone for your time, your patience, and participation in this webinar. You gave us an hour of your busy day, and we hope that you learned something and that you're able to take something with you going forward. As a reminder, we'll be sending out a copy of this webinar recording to all registrants, and it will be added to our website for later reference. Does anybody have any questions? Steve said this is this seems like a great way to get past initial cultural barriers and to get to know your coworkers even better. I'm assuming, I think you're talking about the Cultural Heritage Group, and yeah, definitely 100%. Luna, do you have anything you want to comment on the Cultural Heritage Group?
No, actually, that was a message sent during that part of the presentation, but there's a question coming from somebody in the audience. How well does Service Rocket promote DEI initiatives compared to other companies you have worked for? I can share a little bit about this. And well, communication is always a challenge. Like, it's always something that we need to constantly be improving, I believe mostly now that in previous webinars, we talk about this transparency and the way that we can, well, some tips about how we can keep everybody involved in the loop of what's happening. And I think the example of just creating spaces where people can, where we as a company, where we as a leader can share about that diversity, that richness that we have as a company. I think it's something that we at Service Rocket are in track to do it. I want to say perfectly or the best way possible. I think it is the right way to do it for depending on the channels and the tools that we handle. And compared to other companies, I think it's different. I've been in Service Rocket for almost 9 years. So back then, 9 years ago, it was not. I'll say it was not a thing. Diversity and inclusion was not. It was not a concept. It was not even in the radar, at least in the companies that I work for. So it's really hard to compare for me. But I'll say for what I learned from other friends or people around me, sometimes it's just people don't or companies don't not promote it or don't share about things because sometimes they don't know how to do it, or they think that they need to have a whole team or a whole infrastructure behind it about promoting initiatives like this. So. And sometimes it just requires one person to start making the change in that mindset, right? It's just a mindset. It's something that you feel proud of and something that you can promote as a company. And even though you don't have a whole infrastructure behind it, you can start making small changes that will create the momentum for you to start sharing more and more about that richness that you have in your company.
Luna, can you talk about the recruitment as a strength initiative we have as a company and the things that we've been doing towards driving recruitment of diverse employees, especially like on LinkedIn and with the campaigns we're running?
Which ones? Oh, okay. Well, we are now, we realize that in most of our social channels, we're just sharing 95% of the content or of the updates that we were sharing were more related to business news. And we were not actually implementing any of this, or we were not actually sharing any, not a lot of information about how rich in terms of diversity our company is. And we recently are changing now. Our growth team is working very close to the talent acquisition team, the people team, to make sure that we get all that spirit, all that richness out there, and people are realize that not only people outside who is applying, but also people inside of the company feels motivated and proud of being part of a diverse company, right? So we're putting content out there now. We're building content strategy to share this. We have a blog called Under the Dome as part of you can check it on servicerocket.com/blogs, and we're trying to share as much as we can valuable content and those stories that can be inspiring for all the people to read and for people inside of the company to know as well, that people to feel proud about that, to say like I work or that person is part of my team. So
great. Actually really proud of it. I am on the growth team. I wasn't a part of that initiative, but I have seen the output. You've seen it's a 30% increase in the followers on LinkedIn. We're getting more and more people applying to positions from around the world. So everything that the team is doing is actually working. So congratulations, Luna. Again, thank you to everyone else. If there's no more other questions, thank you so much again for your time. We give you 10 minutes back of your day, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on a future work from Service Rocket. Take care, everybody.